It all started with March of the Penguins in 2005. Now, movies with an animal gimmick were nothing new. We had movies centered around monkeys, apes, movies centered around dogs, shoutouts Air Bud. It's a gimmick as old as time. But the Penguin movie was different. During the 2000s, there was a few years where Penguin movies were being released annually, and a chunk of them are surprisingly good. How did an expertly crafted nature doc lead to years of annual Penguin movies? I'm not much of a nature doc guy, but damn, March of the Penguins is good. Beautiful visuals, a compelling narrative, Morgan Freeman's voice. Before March of the Penguins, these flightless birds weren't even on the radar, but after 2005, these chili chickens were Hollywood's new hotness. What really works about March of the Penguins? It's the story, specifically how the film twists the events of the penguins' lives into something more subjective and anthropomorphized. What I mean is, March of the Penguins isn't just an objective study on the migration and breeding patterns of emperor penguins. It's not just a bunch of facts and data. It documents certain facts about this group of penguins, but the filmmaker's vision, the framing, and narration convey a completely human narrative.
They're not that different from us, really.
As Morgan Freeman puts it, these aren't just animals, they're characters who are looking for love and survival. Their antagonist, Mother Nature, the frigid climate. It's all very strongly characterized. It's not about instinct or evolution. At its core, it's about taking care of the next generation and huddling together to stay alive when the world gets rough. It's one of those documentaries that makes me care a lot about something I wasn't invested in before. There's a powerful vision and sense of scale to every shot, making it seem like the whole world is against these clumsy little dopes. As soon as you might get a little bit bored of the snowy setting, you see the penguins dance underwater, bask in the glow of the northern lights, run for their lives from an animal predator. This seal chase scene has some especially strong editing that convinces viewers that we're right there with the penguins, that the seal is right on our tail. March of the Penguins effectively makes us believe that penguins have personality, that they love each other, that they're in search of love. They flail at each other when they get angry. Some of them try to steal babies from each other. The crux and ongoing tension of the film is whether or not these penguins will survive long enough to take care of their kids. And that's a human concern, a universal concern. Because whether or not you were taken care of by your parents, everyone is somebody's kid and everyone is trying to survive. So looking back, I can definitely see why the world got a little obsessed with this movie when it came out. It is masterful, persuasive, and human storytelling shaped out of an animal phenomenon. Director Jacquet actually condemns the idea that March of the Penguins attributes human qualities to penguin life, saying that you have to let penguins be penguins and humans be humans. Jacquet can say that all he wants, but through its narrative structure and visual choices, March of the Penguins does undoubtedly humanize penguins.
They're not that different from us, really.
And whether it's scientifically accurate, objectively true, or not, that humanization makes for damn effective storytelling. That's what makes this movie work. That's what makes any story work. Not the penguin facts, not the objective reality, but the way these filmmakers weave them into a human story. On a budget of $8 million, March of the Penguins took home $127 million, became the second highest grossing documentary in North America, and earned the Oscar for Best Documentary Feature. It was a big deal. I remember we had to watch it in class when I was in 3rd grade. It's all people were on about for a while. There was even a spoof movie about it, but that's a topic for another video. Subscribe if you want to see 2000 spoof movies analyzed. March of the Penguins was the first big step in the penguin movies of the 2000s. But it should be noted that that same year, 2005, a group of goofy penguins stole the show in a DreamWorks animated movie called Madagascar. Between a serious documentary and scene-stealing cartoon penguins, these flightless birds were primed to be the next big trend. The following year, 2006, marching penguins were superseded with ones who had a little more pep in their step. Happy Feet didn't spawn from the success of March of the Penguins. It had actually been in the works for a while, like any animated movie, especially at this time. But the timing of its release couldn't have been better, as it kept penguins in the public eye for even longer once the buzz from March died down. As an animated movie, it didn't have to persuade the audience that penguins have personality. They're cartoon penguins with human voices who sing and dance. Instant humanization. Happy Feet comes from director George Miller, best known for making the Mad Max movies. I know that sounds strange if you're first hearing it, but Miller is no stranger to kids movies. He's also the one responsible for Babe Pig in the City. Happy Feet, like the Mad Max movies, is really good. Seriously. I didn't expect to like it. I didn't like it when I was a kid, but watching it back to back with March of the Penguins, I had a ton of fun. Where March of the Penguins makes real animal penguins seem human, Happy Feet makes fake penguins seem realer than humans. It'll make sense in a second. It's mythical and epic in its scope and the way it depicts penguin culture. In Happy Feet, penguins are artsy lovers who must learn to tolerate and see the beauty in different abilities. It's about a dancer in a singer's world. Mumble, the protagonist, is the real heart of the story. The only penguin who can't sing, Mumble's screeches and dances are a huge social faux pas. He's got different abilities that are looked down upon. He has a hard time because of the customs and standards of the penguin society, and as a result, he's shunned from the community and put in grave danger. Happy Feet is surprisingly apt in depicting different kinds of ability. This shit genuinely made my heart ache. What really stood out to me here, though, is the depiction of humans, specifically how they don't fit into this world at all. Like literally, they are total aliens. The movie spends 90 minutes in a world where everything fits the same animated style. Every character we've seen up to this point is completely cartoon. The movie accustoms us to a certain look and feel, and after a while, that's what the viewer accepts as reality. But when these ugly live-action weirdos show up, they look entirely foreign. They literally do not fit with the rest of the world. That right there is downright experimental, and I really appreciate it. It's not about being realistic. It's about making what's realistic feel entirely foreign. Humans and their obvious humanness are rendered unnatural. It reveals the fakeness of our strange, destructive, arbitrary systems. Did I go too far with that analysis? Maybe. But that's how I took it. If you were a kid like me during the mid-2000s, you're well aware of what a hit Happy Feet was the year it came out. It nearly quadrupled its budget at the box office and earned an Oscar for Best Animated Feature. Although I didn't really enjoy it as a kid, because the only musicals I liked were Rocky Horror and Tenacious D, I can absolutely recognize now why it's so important. It is easily among the best and most innovative animated films of the past 20 years. If it's been a while since you've seen it, or you've avoided it, go give it a watch. Especially if you're a fan of George Miller's work. There's still another penguin movie that I consider to be significant before the trend starts to decline. It came out the year after Happy Feet, 2007. It's not as artsy or as culturally significant as its predecessor penguin movies, but Surf's Up is entertaining. Its story about an underdog learning from a washed-up athlete is completely conventional, but also really effective. And that story is elevated by its unique animated mockumentary style. Are there any other animated mockumentaries? Let me know, I can't think of one right now. I really like mockumentaries, and I really loved this movie when I was a kid. Watching it now, it still holds up for the most part. Again, it's nothing groundbreaking, but it's a solid animated movie with a really great cast, so I felt like I should flag it as one of the stronger penguin movies. It also feels completely original. Like, I haven't seen an animated mockumentary before. I haven't seen a mockumentary that stars penguins before, and that kind of relates it to March of the Penguins in an interesting way. But after Surf's Up, penguin movies kind of took a downturn. So where did the penguin movies go? 3 years in a row of these great flicks, as well as fan-favorite side characters in another animated franchise. And yet nobody talks about penguin movies anymore. There were more after 2007, but after Surf's Up, the trend started to see diminishing returns. Mr. Popper's Penguins and Happy Feet 2 came out in 2011, as well as The Penguins of Madagascar in 2014. Not to mention the fact that the Madagascar Penguins also had their own TV series from 2008 to 2013. And then Surf's Up 2, Wave Mania happened, as well as a sequel to March of the Penguins. These are all solid for kids. They're not offensively bad, but overall they also feel like the lowest common denominator cashing in on pop culture popularity. They missed the mark and didn't do anything new. And that's likely because all of them, save for Mr. Popper's Penguins, are just heartless sequels. Maybe not entirely heartless, but the Penguin movies stopped offering up anything new, just more of the same, but less interesting because it had already been done before. As a result, the Penguin movies just did not survive the 2010s. You see, the thing about trends is that they never last, but good stories do. That doesn't mean trends are worthless, though. I recommend any writer uses trends to do something unexpected with an idea that the audience is already familiar with. If it wasn't for certain trends, certain stories might not have gotten a chance at being noticed. Of course, the story always comes first, but the trend can get more eyeballs on a good story. I went into this ready to drag penguin movies and the studio execs who tried making it a thing. And to a certain degree, trying to force a trend is bad.
Gretchen, stop trying to make fetch happen. It's not going to happen.
And that's usually why trends don't survive. But after thoroughly enjoying 3 of the movies that contributed to this trend and immediately forgetting about the ones that didn't do anything new or interesting, I'm actually pretty happy that this trend existed. There's at least a single great triple feature in there that tells its own meta story between March of the Penguins, Happy Feet, and Surf's Up. You start with a nature documentary that humanizes penguins, then watch a heartfelt animated movie that makes penguins feel realer than humans, and cap it it all off with a lighthearted, goofy penguin mockumentary that blends elements from the first two. I like that as a 3-part story, more than the penguin movie trend itself. It wasn't a trend that took the world by storm, it wasn't like the current cinematic universe trend, but penguin movies were definitely one of those micro-trends that I imagine a few studio execs got entirely fixated on. Unfortunately, the fixation on the trend rather than telling a new story essentially killed the penguin movie. If there's any lesson in here for me, it's that trends aren't necessarily bad. In fact, it can be a great opportunity to do something new, in a paradoxical kind of way. If you're gonna follow the trend, you've got to use it in a way that nobody else has. Trends have expectations and tropes, and as a creator, those are great tools to use unconventionally to surprise the audience. Don't just make more of the same, because that's how trends die. Do something with the trend that's entirely your own, that nobody else can duplicate. That's definitely what I'm trying to do with this channel, and my generous Patreon producers seem to agree. Big thank you to Caleb Mayer, Greta Harris, Jack Hussey, and executive producer Jaime Cadena. If you want more 2000s nostalgia, check out my other videos. There's a few you might like, and a whole playlist on my channel. Thanks for watching.